into the conversations already. I mean, some states are already getting, you know, their gears on and stuff like that. The question of the attention, where we should be paying attention, those are things that we should be giving some prevalence now. What do you think? Because at the end of the day, first of all, there is the responsibility of the INEC, of the observers, of the security agencies, but then there is also the responsibility of the people. We'll talk all about all of that.
Yes, indeed. Jeffrey, you know, Jeffrey talked about all of what has happened pre-2019 up to this moment. Another thing we're also seeing is that some of the governors will be returning, you know, could be returning, let's put it that way. And then we got some states that should be having new governors.
It's all part of the slide.
And who knows, you know, which particular political parties. But of course, we will be bringing you the very latest as things happen. But we understand that, you know, some of the INEC staff are gearing up to go to those polling units, to those wards around the country. We'll be bringing you visuals of that very shortly. But we have joining us here in Lagos a guest. He is, of course, Mr. David Dada. He's a co-founder, president, DT Coop, a fintech, and G is also an ICT consultant. Thank you. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right. I wanted to maybe first get your thoughts on, you know, the elections that held and what you anticipate today.
Well, I don't think there was too many surprises at the last elections. Pretty much, well, a lot of things upset, you know. Who could have thought Lagos will, you know, will slip off APC? And who could have thought that LP will sweep 11 states and, you know, the FCT? That's almost unimaginable. However, if you take a look at the momentum that built up, you know, towards that election, you shouldn't be surprised that LP actually disrupted the process like Geoffrey described it. But today, we should see a better turnout because, especially here in Lagos, I think people are more determined to vote. People think they've learned from what happened on the 25th, and they believe that they stand a chance this time around. And I also hope INEC will live up to the billing, because last week, I mean, the last time, there were delays, and that really frustrated a lot of people. People went out to vote, but they couldn't on time, and they left.
Well, polls should open in about 30 minutes from now, right? So I guess we'll wait to see. Well, we also have a number of other people with us this morning. Professor Abdulgani Raji is a former resident electoral commissioner in Osun State. He joins us virtually from Oyo State this morning. Thank you so much for joining us, Prof.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning.
Yes. We have Mr. Oluwole Osaze-Uzi, former INEC National Commissioner for a former staff of INEC in charge of voter education, and is also a Channels TV election analyst. He joins us from our Benin studio. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Mr. Uzi.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Yeah, we would also be having Mr. Kayode Ido, who is Chief Press Secretary to the former INEC chairman, and he is joining us from Abuja. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Mr. Ido.
Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, as well as Professor Ben Ohoyafo, who is Vice Chancellor, Dennis Osadebe University, and a former Deputy Vice Chancellor of Management Services at UNILAG. Well, we're hopeful that he will join us later this morning. But let me ask you, Mr. Osaze-Uzi, I mean, one of the things that a number of people consider quite a letdown is the voter turnout again. So speak to us about your own angle, while one of the things that you did while you were at INEC, which was being in charge of voter education. 27% or thereabout is the percentage of people were told that turned out for the presidential election of the 25th. How concerned does that make you, and what does that tell you, seeing that it doesn't seem to have changed much?
Yes, thank you. It's a very disturbing figure, because the credibility of any election, part of the yardstick used metrics for measuring credibility of an election is the number of people who turned up for that election, Where there's a high voter turnout, the tendency is that, look, people are sufficiently mobilized and they have sufficient trust in the system. That is why they have turned out to participate. But where the voter turnout continues to decline, is very low, then questions arise as to trust, belief, and in the fidelity of the process and the system. So that is a very worrisome thing, where only 27%. We were in the studios on election day for the presidential election 3 weeks ago, and some commentators were saying, oh, high turnout, very high turnout. It looked impressive, actually. They said, look, we have to be careful until the results, the close of polls, you cannot tell the percentage who have turned out for that particular election. And sadly, even though many people would say there's a very high turnout, lots of turnout, that's the high percentage was belied by the final accreditation figures. I don't know why, because I believe that people actually had good belief in the system and the process leading up to the presidential election. Thought that there was a high degree of confidence in INEC coming from the Osun election, and they saw the way BIVAS, saw the deployment of technology. So they believe that their votes will count. And I'm surprised, very surprised, at the total number of people. But I believe the figure was against those who collected their permanent voters' cards. Only those who collected their permanent voters' cards are entitled to vote. So let us base the total number of accredited people against the total number of who collected their PVC. Because in fact, unlike other countries, anybody whose name was registered is considered eligible to vote. Where in Nigeria, not so. It's dependent on the total number of people who have collected their PVCs. Collection of your PVC those evinces your desire to go and vote on. Again, we have to look at our registers. A number of people are dead. Quite a number have migrated, have left the country. Unfortunately, we don't have process and procedures for cleaning up the register and maintaining updated data. It's a bit false in the sense that we still haven't gotten that right. So we don't actually know how many people are actually eligible, how many people are alive, how many people are still there. If you go and check amongst prominent people who have died, nobody has gone to INEC to say, look, XYZ has died. INEC on its own cannot remove those people and say they're dead. So these are some of the issues. But belief in the system, I think, will encourage a higher voter turnout.
Well, Prof, I'd like to take your own comment on that as well, Professor Raji, because on the one hand is the responsibility of INEC to educate voters. On the other hand is the responsibility of political parties themselves to perform that same function. Speak to us about, from your experience as a resident electoral commissioner in Osun State, Professor Gani Raji, what should we be doing now, or is it too late to mobilize people to at least get out and make themselves available for the election? It is very, very concerning that a population of 87.2 million voters who have the right to vote, having their permanent voter cards, only represented by just about 27% of that number, going by what happened 3 weeks ago. Is there anything that can still be done this moment to ensure that people come out? We still have about 24 minutes or thereabouts before the election polls open.
Thank you very much. Well, mobilization and sensitization is never too late. It's never late and never too late. But it depends on who has the right to do what at an appropriate time. As far as mobilization is concerned, for today, it's too late for the politicians to do it publicly. But I'm of the opinion, with the experience that I've had on the field, that voter education, I think 80% of it is better done by the politicians because they are closer to the grassroots. It's part of the activities of INEC. Of course, you have mentioned Mr. Uzi was in charge of voter education and publicity for a very long time. And he can say more on that, but I believe in INEC is very, very serious about voter education, and that is done extensively. However, those who actually need the people to vote for them should do more of voter education. But what you find out is that people are even being repelled For example, you introduced me as joining from Oyo State, and you can see what happened 2 days ago. About 4 people were killed. That can actually scare people away from going to the polling unit. I'm not sure whether, I don't know, maybe later I can get information about that particular area where the violence took place about 2 days ago. Whether people would still feel very, very confident to come out and vote. So the politicians have to be very, very careful, and they need to take voter education seriously, because they are the ones that need the people. However, in order not to be wasting the national resources, INEC is also involved seriously with voter education, because there's no point in having 92,000 or 91,000, million voters. Registered, and then only maybe 20, 24 million will come out. And of course, having been an insider before, I know the quantum of resources that we normally commit onto voter registration. So it's never too late. INEC can still continue doing it. The media houses can actually assist without being partitioned, because campaign and all other whatever ends since the midnight of Thursday. So we can't continue that publicly. The campaign cannot continue, but mobilization and sensitization can actually go on.
Let's hear from you, Mr. Kayadedu, and this is on the subject of, voter apathy, voter education, people coming out to vote, hoping that it's not too late in the couple of minutes that we have before the polls open at 8. And, we heard from Professor Raji, who said the politicians are better off, actually, doing the voter education. Is this something that you agree with? Mr. Kayadedu. Oh dear.
Can you hear me?
You might have to unmute.
Okay.
Great.
Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
All right. Yeah, I agree entirely with the earlier speakers that the turnout is discouraging. But I think that the onus for high voter turnout rests heavily on the political parties and political actors. In most countries, the responsibility for mobilizing voters rests on the political actors. And the reason for this is that politics is a game of passion. And it is the political actors who are involved in it with passion. INEC is a dispassionate organization. I can assure you that I see a lot of, now that I'm out of INEC, I see a lot of effort that INEC makes. Already yesterday, I got 2 text messages mobilizing voters, which apparently they sent to all voters. I got that on my phone as well.
I did as well.
To ginger people to go out and vote. But you see, that can only do so much without the politicians having mobilized their people to vote for them. And I suspect the reason this is not happening is because rather than canvass their candidature and their strength on the basis of what they think they could use to persuade the voters, they are employing desperate means, illicit means, aggression, and all that. Another thing that could be at stake here is the issue of voter suppression, where people will even want to come out, but they are scared to do that for all manners of reasons. And the people that could help with that are essentially the political actors and the communities themselves. So I think that this should be a learning curve for us in Nigeria and for the political class especially, that mobilizing voters to vote rests heavily on the passionate actors, which are the politicians.
But isn't that where the risk of vote buying comes in, if we leave it all to the politicians?
Yes, that's why I talked about the licit means, not the illicit means. vote buying is an illicit mode of mobilizing voters. And actually, vote buying is not mobilizing voters. How many voters can you buy, so to speak, in that will translate to a high voter turnout? So those mechanics that are employed, you buy votes, you suppress voters, you orchestrate circumstances that will result in violence and all that will not translate to high voter turnout. What will translate to high voter turnout is convincing the people of what you have in store for them and persuading them to go and vote on that you have promised as putting on offer for them. And if people are convinced, then they will come out to vote. But when INEC mobilizes, and INEC does the little it can by gingering people as dispassionately as it can, because it's dispassionate. They just send you text messages, or they place slots, advert slots, and all that, as dispassionately as it can. What will really get to the heart of voters is the conviction of wanting to get certain people in for what they have on offer, and that can be done by presenting your programs to the people convincingly and encouraging them to go out and vote for that.
Yes, indeed. Let's bring the conversation back here into the studio. Let me talk to Mr. Dada. Now, I did hear you mention the fact that you expect the turnout to be more than the presidential election. I'm curious to know why you think so.
I believe INEC will improve the process. I believe INEC will come out, probably earlier, like some of your reports are already indicating that we have people at the polling unit getting ready, at the rack centers getting ready to move to the polling unit. So if INEC lives up to the billings, then it's possible we have a larger turnout today.
Well, my apologies, Geoffrey, one of the things that concerns many people about that, which could discourage people to come out and vote, is the same process. The most crucial element of that process is the IREV. Now, so let's just put it out there. Depending on whose data you're looking at, there are those who say some claim 1.2 million attacks were launched at INEC's server, whatever that means. There are those who quote the president as saying we had 12.9 million or so attempts. Some also claim that the Minister of Information and Digital Economy talked about 16 million attempts. I don't know how that is possible all in one day. So you want to put us through, what does that mean when we hear INEC server hacked? But you will talk about that. But how significantly do you think that might affect people? Because that's a crucial element of the process that many people are talking about.
So this election is supposed to be technology driven, from registration to verification, then the reporting. I think two of those in that chain, they're just a joke. The continuous voter registration, in my own opinion, talking about technology, it's a joke. IREV, the reporting portal, sincerely, I don't know how they came about that and what they really intend to achieve, saying you need to snap and upload. So that puts a big question mark, really, on the legitimacy of some of those things that are putting up there. I mean, you go to the portal sometimes, you want to check a result, you see people's faces in place of,
Did you check, result. Did you see someone?
I actually did. Oh yes, one of the polling units in Ado-Ekiti had a lady's picture as a form of result. I mean, are we joking? I mean, are we for real?
She did a selfie.
Unfortunately. Maybe she turned the camera the other way. But then there should be a level of verification before something like that. We're talking about sensitive matters here. So certain things should not make it to IREV. But what do we have? We just have something that is more of a joke. However, if you look at the process, I think INEC did a good job by allowing each of the, the representatives of the political parties to have a copy. So they can set up their own IREV, if you will, and use that to compare whatever INEC is putting out there. And I think that's one of the issues about the process that one of the political parties is fighting, about. Okay, so if we have that in place today, it will be easier for a lot of political parties to be able to compile and compare whatever it's there. But I also believe that INEC will have a better process as far as the IREV is concerned today. I'm very sure of that.
Let's take the conversation to Mr. Osaze. Mr. Osaze, if you're still there, let's dwell on this IREV issue and the BIVAS issue for a bit, because I also feel that sometimes the issue is about communication. Some are saying, of course, you don't need network to use the BIVAS according to what we're told. Now, there are people that are going out to vote today. They are saying that, look, when they go and vote, and the results are collated, counted, and everybody countersigns, and it's snapped, it must be uploaded. So what they are technically saying, in my understanding, is the fact that when they snap, they want to go straight to their phone and be sure that these results are already on IREV. So walk us through. There are people saying that, look, you don't need a network to get your to snap with the with the BIVAS, because as soon as you snap, it's data at rest. So wherever you find network, it picks up from there. So what should be the level of education on the part of the electoral umpire as well as the people? Because, for instance, if the person who is serving that particular polling unit is insisting that there's no network and people are saying something is fishy, how does that person get out of that crisis?
A serious crisis, as you rightly pointed out. I understand that 3 weeks ago, during the presidential election, some young men and women of the National Youth Service Corps actually held host several hours. I can understand the desperation of voters insisting that their votes must count, but we have to be careful about taking the laws into our hands. It's what's happened in many instances amounted to kidnap. I don't believe most of those polling officials deliberately did not want to upload. I think it is yet to have come from the server, the receiving server. Although there are some people who understand they don't either forgot their codes, they don't know their codes, or their codes were not working. So there are lots of issues that the presidential election, national election, elections 3 weeks ago threw up. Lots of people should realize that it is correct that you don't need data to snap a photograph. You scan or snap the photograph of the result sheet. What might be difficult sometimes is for it to upload. Sometimes it will go just like your phone. If you send a text message, you send a WhatsApp message, sometimes you might even leave your phone. It doesn't appear at the receiving end. So that is an issue. And the fact that you have sent it doesn't necessarily mean that automatically and real time you will see it on the portal. I think certain assurances were given by INEC. I think INEC actually raised people's expectations so much without realizing that from those statements, there could possibly be glitches. I don't think the Commission made people so aware of that. Although if you tell them beforehand there could be glitches, be careful, you tend to, some people might start to doubt and trust in the system. But we have seen what has happened. I believe INEC would have attended to those glitches and have a much better understanding of the process and ensure that as much as is practicable, all the results go onto the portal. People are anxious. You have built people's expectations. You have built awareness, and I think because with the off-season elections, like in your school, awareness was very high. People were excited. I think I started from Edo. People were very happy to see that, look, my results are there, and it's tallies with what we took photographs of or what we saw polling units. It's a confidence building thing. It's once it's not there, people deem that the process is opaque. So it has to ensure that these things, whatever glitches there were, are actually quickly addressed and try to rebuild the confidence of the people. This is really a redemptive election. There's a redemption time for the Commission. Because if people don't see their results within a reasonable time there, they will speculate. Speculation now comes in. I think doctoring results, they're changing it, and social media is awash of results that have been changed. Whether the IREV shows those change results, I honestly don't know. But I think that's what has to be communicated, that yes, it is the result from the polling that uploaded. We appeal to people to ensure, and I think many voters were wonderful, offered that data. For example, they offered hotspots and said, use money. If you don't have data, if you don't have hotspot, you can use us. I hope that spirit pervades the entirety of the polling units today. So that cooperation is there to lessen tension, and I hope provide for a better election.
Ms. Halsey, you mentioned something, and let me stay on that. You said reasonable time. Let me speak from the voter's point of view. What is reasonable time? Because that is where the crisis really is. The key words here are real time and all the technical words that have been used, and of course, that really caused an issue. Remember, in the presidential election, we didn't see any result on IREV till later the next day, and we didn't see any communication until the evening of the very next day, which further widen the trust gap we already have as a country. So what is reasonable time?
Well, you're quite right. I think one of the officials, I can't recall whether it was the chairman himself, did say that results will be uploaded real time. I think that is a little bit misleading. You have a typical ICT person there. Real time just goes automatically. But I'm not so sure whether the system is designed that way. 24 hours certainly is not reasonable time. I don't think 6 hours is reasonable time in my own dictionary. But I expect that within 30 minutes to an hour, the results ought to be uploaded. But that's for me. The truth is that neither the Electoral Act nor the Constitutional Electoral Act or the INEC regulations actually mentions. What the regulations say is that the results are uploaded onto the IREV. It doesn't state when this should be done. But officials of the commission went on to say that it's real time. I'm not aware that the commission has clarified that. So it's actually the commission to state what time it will be uploaded. The regulations which guide the process does not say, it just says uploaded. It doesn't state the time when it will be uploaded from the polling unit. That's all it says. But at what point do voters actually go to the IREV and see it? We have to take the word of the officials who have said it's real time. But quite honestly, last election we thought that most of it was not real time. Actually, it would take some minutes, if not up to an hour.
Professor Raji, what's your take on, IREV? And this is also, I mean, as former REC Osun State, did you work with IREV? Are you familiar with it?
Well, thank you very much. Well, very, very familiar. And I can even say that right from the onset, when it was launched, I've been part of it. Even when it was not yet official, when we actually tested it. And during the Osun election, well, I was actually monitoring live as all the results were coming in and doing an analysis, looking at how many results were actually being delivered per hour or per minute. And so that was even a guide for us to even start the collation process at the state level, when we eventually found out that about 90% of the results had been uploaded. But you see, when there are some issues, we need to look at, situations holistically. What happened during the last presidential election? Well, it cannot just be taken in isolation as far as INEC is concerned. We should know that there are so many things that are attached to it. Of course, somebody has said, some statements ought to have been made, some releases ought to have been made by INEC to explain what was going on. We should know that whether the person is uploading offline or online or whatever, it depends. I mean, it rests and that requires the telecoms network. But at the same time, there are some other issues that can come in, technically. However, you should know that presiding officers and the assistant presiding officers, and even the registration area technicians that are actually handling these BIVAS, they are young people. And when they are intimidated, they are harassed, they become unstable. So one of the things we should always do, even as REC, I always say it anytime we are doing voter education, let us know that these people are our children. Even if they are older than our children, they are our children. We should tread it softly with them, The moment somebody is shouting at a young person, there will be a problem. Knowing fully well that he has taken oath. So it becomes unstable. And I think in any of the polling units, there will be elderly people, there will be elites, there will be, well-educated people who can actually handle these issues. INEC has said BIVAS can operate online and offline. If there is no network, there is no way anybody can actually upload anything and it will go. But the issue is once you leave that place and you move to the next place where there is network, it will go. The most important thing is let the presiding officer or the RATEC or the assistant presiding officer, snap that result right there in your presence. It means that that image is already on that BIVAS. The next place you encounter the network, it will go. And then you can see, the log of the thing having been delivered, just like on our phones, SMS and then emails and whatever. This is an electronic device. And so this is what we should understand. Well, we don't have much time, but I believe it's a matter of trust. The day we all trust ourselves, that's the day we are going to have a very, very perfect election. But the moment we start, doubting ourselves, doubting INEC, doubting this, we are doubting, everybody is suspicious of each other. There's no way we can operate smoothly.
Mr. Ido, you were former Chief Press Secretary to the former INEC Chairman, and I think during your time it was quite different. There were no BIVAS or IREV. What do you think, having come from where we were to where we are now?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
You see, that's the point in my view. My understanding of the statements that INEC put out about the IREV dysfunctionality is that they had a challenge with upscaling the application from off-season elections to general elections. And the entire thing about IREV, as I see it, is to build confidence. And so you see, on the part of INEC, I think the unfortunate thing is that INEC overpromised during the 25th February elections. INEC overpromised and underdelivered. But that is not to say that the issue of IREV had anything to do with the processes in itself. And this is what I mean. I'm going to the question that you asked. In 2015, there was no IREV. Even in 2019, I'm not sure there was IREV. What political parties do is you collect the ECAT form that has been signed, and you do your own tabulation because you run your own collation process. You have your own situation room where you can do your own tabulation. And so with what you are fed with by your agents, you can do your maths and compare that to the maths of INEC when they do theirs. The IREV thing is for the public to also buy in to the process, not for the political parties per se. It is for the public to also buy into that process, to have more confidence in the process. And so I think when political parties now capitalize on that to say, no, because IREV was not working, there were issues. I think that it is playing games there. Because when there was no IREV, political parties were collating their results and they were able to tabulate. So what happened? That on the 25th, IREV did not function, and did that affect their capacity to tabulate? Because they had their agents at the polling units, and they had their agents at the collation centers, and they could send on their data and do their maths and wait for what INEC will do eventually. So I think that it's overplaying. Yes, INEC overpromised and underdelivered. There's no question about that. And of course, technology is no respecter of persons. These things happen.
Well,
So there seems to be a lot of determination there, you know. We're looking at that.
I think the only thing that is of concern is the timing.
Yeah.
But determined, most certainly we all are.
And it's quite impressive to see that people are determined, because at the end of the last exercise, some people were a bit skeptical, but to see that they've gained their energy.
Yes, and it's 8:30 when voting should kick off.
Exactly.
The accreditation.
Well, we still have Mr.
Our guest, yes. I wanted to get your thoughts on all the things that we've been seeing so far. What are your impressions?
If the reports are anything to go by, I think this is going to be a better one, from all indication. Like you rightly pointed out, voters are supposed to start, the voting is supposed to start 8:30, and most of them have moved to their polling unit. So worst case scenario, we'll see elections maybe latest 9-10 getting started. And yeah, we're up to a very good start.
The interesting part of it is the INEC officials' part, and concerning as that may be, maybe I should quickly ask Professor Raji about that one. The fact that the INEC officials aren't, well, people are still literally waiting for them in most of the places that we have seen so far. How concerned are you about that, Professor Raji?
It is not new. Because there is no system that is perfect. You have pockets of places like that. However, in INEC, this will be noted, and those responsible will have to explain why that happened. Sometimes it could be logistic issues, maybe disappointment, maybe from the transporters or whatever. But I'm sure if we look at the statistics, probably about over 90% or 95 or 98% have actually hooked on. I don't know whether you have that data, but you will still have pockets of places like that. So anybody that is trying to find excuses that it cannot happen, I mean, but where we now have about 90% of places not yet opened by this time, then it calls for a very serious concern.
All right. Well, let's come back to you, Mr. Dada. We wanted to ask you that question that you've been ruminating on for quite a while. That concern is not going to go away. In fact, as some have put it, it's a confidence renewing or confidence boosting exercise for INEC today, the IREV in particular. I mean, there hasn't been much question about BIVAS.
I think BIVAS has performed creditably well in terms of verifying voters. And so, like I said, there are three, levels that's supposed to be driven by technology. You have the continuous voters registration, the BIVAS, and of course the IREV. I think a lot could be done about the voters registration part of it. BIVAS, in my own opinion, has performed creditably well. We had shorter period verifying voters and getting on with their voting. But the IREV has remained a sore thumb in the process, all right? And people need to understand that the IREV is supposed to give you the polling unit results, not the global results, not the state results or, the country's results. So people are expecting to see real-time results across the states. But that's not what IREV is made for. IREV is supposed to give you, the result at the polling unit, supposedly real-time. But as you have seen, it has not been, and it's not anything close to real time.
Well, that said, can we now happily come to Lagos and stay in Lagos?
Well, I wanted us to go to Benin, and this is to hear from Mr. Osaze Uzi. Your thoughts, your impressions about what we've heard from our correspondents so far. We went to Kaduna, we also went to Boji. Boji correspondent talked about, some of the voters who were receiving bags of rice. Should they take them? Should they not? Does that qualify as vote buying, Mr. Uzi?
Sorry, the audio is not so clear. There's a little glitch with the audio here, but I guess you're talking about gifts being handed over to the voters.
Yes, please. Yes, that's what we were talking about.
Mr. Uzi, yes, indeed.
Well, okay, but I think the law frowns on, not I think, I know that the law frowns on voter inducement. I think you very often refer to it as vote buying. It's almost defies that illegal transaction. What it is voter inducement, is bribery of voters. And you know, in bribery, those who give and those who receive are equally liable. Before the exchange of money was popular, I think in the 1998, 99 to up to 2003, you used to have what we call a bread sandwich. Buy a loaf of bread was about 50 naira, then I put another 50 naira inside and hand over to the voters. Because voter inducement is not new; it has come in different shapes and sizes. Because the movement of cash is a lot more difficult now, I think the politicians have resorted to different ways of trying to induce voters. And it's the law talks about not just cash, but it refers to kind as well. The way you try to induce people by cash, by kind, by whatever means, once it's an attempt corruptly induce a voter to vote one way or to vote another way or not to vote at all these are criminal offenses for which there are severe penalties, 500,000 naira or 1 year in jail and things like that. Severe penalties for voting. The lack of cash has helped a great deal in curtailing the extent of inducement, but certainly it has not stopped it. I understand from security reports that lower denominations of the dollars were being sought when they couldn't get enough cash. I guess they couldn't get those lower denominations. They resorted to black surprise, condiments, soup condiments, and stuff like that. They looked at different ways to induce the voters. It's part of the gain of our electoral process. It's something we challenge, and I guess the fact that the EFCC and other security agents are all around the place, the politicians are a little bit more circumspect, they're a little more careful. Otherwise, few cycles ago, they were a lot more brazen about it. It distorts.
Mr. Uzi, are you also impressed with the deployment so far?
From your reports, yes. I coming to your studios this morning. We also passed by several polling units, and there seemed to be some activity in those units. At the end of the day, what will determine it, I think it was Mr. Kaido, who said that, look, we have to await the figures that finally come out. I know that INEC, for example, in our situation, we receive reports as to which stations have opened, which are not open, because immediately the presiding officer opens, he has to report the situation room so that people can ascertain. It's difficult to say what the percentage will be, but all the stations that we passed through when we're coming here, where the activity is going on, and that was as early as 7:15, 7:30. Actually, there's from the guidelines the manual has given to them, the polling officials are supposed to set up at 7:30, and so that by 8:30 they are more than ready to receive the people. So I think it's good. Apart from this, somewhere in Kaduna, where some people are still receiving materials, it's quite possible at about 8:20 or 8:15. It's quite possible that that is also a polling unit. Some rack centers are also polling units. So they give to those in the far distance first, and then those closest to the rack centers will get their materials last, because in 10 minutes they can settle. So far so good, but we will await the final one. It's how it should be.
Okay. We have lost that audio, but I'm pretty sure that we'll come back to it. So there you have it. Activities are going on, quite well and simple and all.
Pretty early to say, but then we're hoping that the processes kick in at the same time with the time frame that we have till 2:30.
Yeah. So, well,
we're just going to keep tab on all of them to ensure that it's a representation of what's happening across the country. These are different places we've been to, and
in different parts of the country
different parts of the country. So we'll make sure that, of course, at the end of the day, it's always different stroke for different folks.
Absolutely.
One question I wanted to ask is, is everyone still focusing on just the governorship and not the House of Assembly?
That concern, Millicent, is not going to go away because we are yet to really. Well, let's ask our guest. It seems many people are yet to really understand how important to the democratic process the legislative elections are. You're a voter as well.
993
Absolutely. Now 993 seats going up today for
and
grabs.
10,200 and something candidates.
Yeah.
You know.
And 28 states, you know, we'll be getting new governors today, obviously. Some probably will be returning. Now, it's interesting to see how INEC decides, or the country decides to put the legislatives and then the executives election on the same day. And it will always rub off on each other, one way or the other, because people will always focus on the big one and negate or forget, you know, what looks like maybe the smaller ones. And these smaller ones happen to be the most important ones, in my own opinion, because the real stuff that people should be focused on really are the legislative elections. But because, you know, the attention is always on the, you know, the gubernatorial elections, the presidential elections, they will always rub off on, you know, the legislators.
Well, just one quick one before we let you go now. We're talking about this whole hacking or no hacking, you know, part. Speak to us about two things very importantly, very quickly. Number one, is it real time or no real time? Is it possible, looking at the telecom or digital integration map of Nigeria, to have real-time uploading of results from everywhere in the country?
First, talking about the cyber attack, let me say the figures that have been bandied about by government officials, they're not realistic. That level of attack cannot happen in Nigeria without catching the global attention. There is what we call the cyber attacking map of the whole world. When you go back to February 25th, there are no indications that we had that level of cyber attack on any installation in Nigeria. So they need to validate those claims one way or the other. But the digital footprint on our infrastructure in the country does not indicate that there was anything close to those figures that they're claiming. Now, talking about the
But
real...
that's not to say there were no attacks at all.
Of course, there should be. Otherwise, we're kidding. There will be. There must have been, but not at that scale.
Okay.
All right? Now, talking about the real time, the way the IREV is configured, it's not configured for real-time election reporting. Yeah, because you are uploading, you know, a paper. You are not uploading real-time figures. It will be easy for us to get real-time figures if you are imputing the figures. They go up there and anybody can see the figures.
They just add up automatically.
And it will be easy to aggregate that. But if you have to snap each polling results, you know, on paper, then someone else will have to do the aggregation to give you the real-time result. We can only talk about seeing the real-time screenshots of a paper. And even that didn't come real time.
So why did INEC say real time?
Well, they will have to answer that.
Well, it's very, very interesting because that's the question. And you know, another angle to this whole conversation about real time and no real time is that, look, you said uploading a paper in what format? Not in PDF, really? Is it PDF?
No,
is
just
it JPEG
and PNG
and all those things. So, which is a little heavier than just numbers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, we have to thank you very much for your time today and allow you to go and do what you want to do, which is to vote and color your finger.
Thank you.
Mr. David Dada is co-founder and president dtcoop.ng. He's an ICT consultant. I won't tell us about the other ones. As well as Professor Abdul Ghani Raji, former resident electoral commissioner in Osun State. Thank you so much for your time today. Mr. Oluwale Osazeuzi, former
Thank you very much for having me.
Deputy Director in charge of voter education, as well as our Channels TV election analyst. We've also had the privilege and pleasure of Mr. Kayode Ido, who was Chief Press Secretary to a former INEC chairman. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time this morning, and let's allow you, those of you who have to, go and perform your civic duties and vote. So, that's just that for now. We want to take a short break now. As women will say, powder your nose.
Yeah, so we'll take a short break and
Women,
eventually...
men powder their nose as well.
Oh, really? I want to see that. But we need to see that assembly elections map that you're looking at.
Okay.
But we'll come to it.
We'll come back. He's raring to go.
No, yeah, it's going to keep changing very soon. It's going to keep changing.
Come back to it.
I almost ran away.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back, guys.